propose revisions that always seem to involve less respect for the rights of free nations and less freedom for the individual. These matters would be difficult under any circumstances. They are further complicated by a trend in Western countries away from global engagement and democratic confidence. Parts of Europe have developed an identity crisis. We have seen insolvency, economic stagnation, youth unemployment, anger about immigration, resurgent ethno-nationalism, and deep questions about the meaning and durability of the European Union. America is not immune from these trends. In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Bigotry seems emboldened. Politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Now, as you may know, my running mate, Tim, is Catholic and went to Jesuit schools. And one of the things he and I have talked about is this idea from the Jesuits of the Magus, the more, the better.
Hello, everybody. We got another reading of Codeword Barbelon today on the Sabbath day on April 7th, 2018. And I'm joined here with Jörg Lissman in Belgium. Hello, Jörg.
Hello, Brett. Wonderful to be with you. And
Thank
today
you.
we have a day here over in Europe that is almost summer. I think it must be about some 60 degrees at the moment.
Wow. Good for you.
The sun is shining vehemently from the sky.
Yeah.
It's almost no wind. It's just wonderful to sit in the sun. But for the moment, I'm sitting inside my bedroom. But of course, I have the window open, so you probably hear the birds cheeping, as you heard yesterday when I was sitting outside.
You got it. Yep.
But I can tell you that I'm glad that I live over here and not have to share the weather that you have over there, because I saw the video that you made this morning, and
great.
With your
yeah,
walk
I
up
got
that
your
peak
comment
there,
too.
And,
I was going to respond to that right away, but I thought I'd wait. But
even though that it was wonderful weather that you had there, also very blue skies, sun shining.
Yep. It's
okay,
just
it's
like
cold
that today.
It's cold and you have the snow out there, but for the rest, it's wonderful weather.
It's that wind, man. That wind is like ice on your face, man.
Yeah, I believe
you
that.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's not too bad, but if you're not moving all the time, like I stopped there to do, a little talk.
Yeah.
And after about an hour, I was like, man, I'm cold, man. Ugh, I got to get moving.
Yeah. Return home to a nice cup of coffee.
yeah, exactly. Or a nice taco salad. I like to make those. Okay, so we are.
But a taco salad won't warm you up from the inside like a cup of coffee does, eh?
Oh, no, that's true. That's true. But I just get the heater going in that truck of mine, man. That thing cranks out heat like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. You know what one of the most made mistake is of people in the summer when it is warm? They drink something cold to cool themselves.
Oh.
And you know that is wrong, right?
Yeah, because it gives you a headache. It gives me a headache. I can't stand
No, it's not the point that it gives you a headache.
But
then your body produces more energy to get that liquid that you just poured down, which is cold, to get it to temperature, to body temperature.
Good point.
So you burn more energy, so you sweat even more when you drink cold things. So that's why you should drink something warm when you are sweating.
That's one thing about, I just don't get it with this culture we live in, Jörg. I hate that cold drinks too. I never have cold drinks ever anymore. It's always warm unless it's milk or something, unless it keeps something in the fridge. But I rarely do that anymore. No,
you still drink milk?
Almond milk. It's not really milk.
Almond milk. Okay, that's okay. No cow's milk. Okay.
No, well, yeah, I have a little cream in my coffee every now and then, but it's not like I'm addicted to it or anything.
No. It's just because milk is so bad for you, and all dairy products are so
dairy
bad
products
for you.
are bad, but you got to remember, my family's dairy farmer, so I have a very hard time quitting.
So you're getting a discount or what?
No discount.
You
No.
see, so
No,
get
it's just
some
that.
soy milk. Get some soy milk, or get some soy cream, or oat cream, or
Yes.
almond cream, or coconut cream. You can get all those creams also.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they taste much better, and they are much healthier than dairy creams anyway.
Yeah, I like the almond. It's good.
Yeah, I drink almond chocolate every evening.
Sure.
A big jar.
Oh yeah.
with some cookies as dessert after my dinner. Yeah.
You bet.
Looking forward to that every
I
time.
like my cookies too.
Anyway, this is not a nutrition video, guys. This is a video. This is a video on the next reading on Codeword Barbelon, 606 danger in the Vatican, the Sons of Loyola and their plans for world domination. And we are in a chapter that is very, very interesting for our American listeners and viewers of this video, because it deals with the Revolutionary War and how America became a Jesuit enclave.
Well, actually, anyone that studies the American history, it's fascinating to me that the Europeans are so much more keen on all of these little details on these conspirators that most of us Americans are like, what the hell? Who are these people? They're Jesuits.
Yeah.
But to us, I mean, it's like, well, I didn't even know I grew up with Jesuits until I started looking more into this. It's like, you gotta be kidding. Okay.
There's one interesting sentence that I want to repeat from the reading yesterday. And that is, President John Adams is reported to have asked the papal admirer Thomas Jefferson, quote, "Can free government possibly exist with the Roman Catholic religion?" And of course, we have to give an answer to that question.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of page 310. I see it. Yep.
Yeah, and we have to say, no, it is absolutely impossible. The one is exclusive for the other. A Roman Catholic religion is excluding every kind of free government, because a Roman Catholic religion is bound to the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church, is bound to Roman Catholic canon law, in which it is stipulated that the Pope is the ultramontane ruler, the absolute sovereign of the church and the sovereign over all the people that are in that church. Therefore, the Roman Catholic religion is a combination of state and church, in the same way as Islam is also a combination of state and church. That's one of the similarities that they have. And Roman Catholic religion, when it is brought into full fruition, absolutely excludes every kind of free government. And that is what we really have to understand. So then you are saying, but why did and this is coming up because I read a little bit into the chapter that we are going to read now.
Please, go ahead. Yep.
Then you're going to ask yourself, but why is it that even Roman Catholics participated in the War of Independence? Why did even Roman Catholics participate in the war fighting against British Protestants to get an independence from a state where in most of the colonies they were suppressed? Because there was actually only Maryland and a little bit Virginia and a little bit, what was the other place? I think we come to that. Actually, it was Pennsylvania. Maryland and Pennsylvania, where there were not that great restrictions for Roman Catholics, but in all other colonies, Roman Catholicism was absolutely suppressed. I mean, you even find signs of these today. You can look at that in the internet. There were flyers hanging out, there were boards hanging out that it was forbidden to celebrate Christmas. Yeah? It was forbidden for Roman Catholics to participate in Mass. It was forbidden for them to have the Eucharist. Yeah? And that is essential for Roman Catholics. So why are Roman Catholics even fighting on that war? And this is only to be answered when you have an understanding of the double-faced Jesuit policy. And we are going into that right now.
Oh no. Yeah. That's right. You got it. Let's go.
We are going into that right now, using reading the subchapter, using war to the church's advantage. Yeah?
Boy, we get right into the heart of the Jesuit oath, aren't we?
Yeah, a little on. Yeah,
it is.
There's also another thing that I want to say here. Using war to the church's advantage, I've learned from readings of Tom Friess that he quoted somewhere that I don't know where that is written down exactly, but maybe you can look that up if you have some spare time during the reading here, Brett.
Oh, sure.
That it is said that the church is only advantageous in times of war. It's useless in times of peace.
Oh,
and that of course has to do with the grandfather clock.
It sure
That's
does.
a video that I have on my channel already since a year or two, where Tom Friess explained the grandfather clock.
That's right.
The only thing that is moving is the pendulum that swings from the left to the right, and from the right to the left, and again from the left to the right, and back from the right to the left. And the only thing actually changing is the finger on the grandfather clock, advancing the Antichrist agenda. Yeah? And the Roman Catholic Church is only moving forward when there are times of war. And that's why they need the Jesuits, the militia, to incite war, to go into countries that are prosperous, that are enjoying the peace, that are enjoying the arts, and they need to send the Jesuits in to infiltrate them and to see and to sow the seeds of sedition, to sow the seeds of civil war. And that's exactly what the Jesuits do. And they did the same very carefully during, let's say, in the time between the landing of the Ark and the Dove in 1634 and the outbreak of the Revolutionary War in 1776. They had 140 years of preparation, and it was all planned. Let me assure you this. The more you get into books like Rulers of Evil and The Ark and the Dove, and combine this with the knowledge that you get from Codeword Barbelon, the more you will understand that everything that happened in 1776 was planned at least 100 years on beforehand. But now let's go into using war to the church's advantage. Unless, of course, Brett, you have some more comment to make before.
Well, I'm trying to find that quote, and I can't find it right now.
That's okay. America's first Catholic bishop was a strong supporter of the American Revolution. John Carroll firmly believed that a Catholic institution could make a major contribution to the political, to the cultural, and educational life of the fledgling nation. Unquote. Once the war began, in order to dispel the deep-seated suspicion of the Protestants that the Catholic Church in America was no more than a tool of the Holy See, Bishop John Carroll encouraged Catholics to fight in the 1776 War for America's independence from Britain. This proved to be the major turning point in Catholic-Protestant relations. This reminds me after the Second World War. When you were a communist, you were anti-American. You could be Catholic, you were American. But if you were communist, you were anti-American. The point is, the motivation to get the colonies separated from England were twofold. And if you don't understand that, it is of no sense that you read or listen any further than what I'm reading here. The twofold is that the Roman Catholic Church tried to give the impression to the colonies that through King George III and his Catholic friends who were actually ruling England at that time, and their numerous wrong, quote-unquote, wrong taxes and things they did to the colonies, as we spoke already before, like the Stamp Act and the taxes on the tea and all that stuff. And when I told you that Charles Carroll was promoting the sentence, no taxation without representation, the colonists were to get the influence, the idea that England was turning Catholic. And of course, because they all fled Europe because of Catholicism and went into the colonies for their freedom, and when these colonies still were dependent on a country that was turning Catholic, well, there was no need even to flee there. So that's why they were told to get their War of Independence. The other reason was, and that's probably even more important, but that is the hidden reason of the war, of the Revolutionary War. The other reason was that the Jesuits had tried and tried and tried to get England back under the control of the Pope, and they did not succeed. They did not succeed with many, I think at least 20 assassinations they tried on the life of Queen Elizabeth. They did not succeed with the Babington plot. They did not succeed with the Spanish Armada. They did not succeed with the gunpowder plot. They did not succeed with the kings afterwards. Even in 1689, there came the Glorious Revolution. Yeah, Protestant England more and more separated itself from Rome, and the policy of the Jesuits was, well, if we can't get the homeland, meaning England, back to the doings of the Pope, we have to get the colonies to do that. And that's why they funded the United States of America.
I see.
And those are the two motivations that you have for that war. And when you know that, it of course is no wonder that even a Catholic would gladly die for the cause, because in the end, Brett, the church is the profiter. The church is the winner. The church is the gainer. And what does what do the Jesuits say? The end justifies the means if the church in the end is the winner of the situation.
Yeah, I think of that, was it Latin phrase, ADMG?
Ad majorem Dei gloriam.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ad majorem Dei gloriam. Yeah, to the greater glory of God.
Yeah, that's what they claim.
That's the motto. That's the motto of the Jesuits. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just have to understand that those were the two motivations. I mean, how could you otherwise convince all the colonists to step into a war all of a sudden? I mean,
that's right.
Everybody who stepped into a war was, in my opinion, not a Christian anyway, because he didn't understand the Christian principle of don't kill. Yeah, thou shalt not kill. Jesus said, don't harm any man. But besides of that, they were giving the colonists the feeling that England was turning Catholic, and by that again Rome would rule over them, so they had to separate from England for their own safety. And that's why they did it. And then, of course, they fell for one of the biggest lie ever, when in the Constitution or in the Bill of Rights it is mentioned, Congress shall not make any law concerning religion. There is quote-unquote religious freedom. And that took away all the restrictions Roman Catholics had during the time of the colonies, and they did never have these restrictions anymore since 1776. That's why what we read already a few broadcasts before, Brett, let me just remind you that one of the very first actions George Washington, the very first president, did was abolish Pope Day.
Yeah.
Burning the Pope in effigy in remembrance of the gunpowder plot.
Yep.
That's
right.
why.
Anti-Catholicism. He got rid of all the anti-Catholicism. I mean, it's not just that. All kinds of things, I would imagine, huh?
Yeah, sure. This is only a part that we can shine a light on.
Yeah, that's right. I really like that that quote there. I should I'll definitely remember it once I make the video. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, it is something like the Roman Catholic Church is only prosperous in times of war. Something like
that's
that.
one of the few examples I think I could use to take a scan or a photo of the book and just let the screen sit there for a few minutes.
But I hope the listeners of this video do now have a little bit a deeper understanding of what this Revolutionary War quote-unquote revolutionary war, we should say, actually was all about.
Sure.
And how people were lured into it,
Yep.
So I'm going to continue reading now.
Oh, yeah, I think I may have found that quote. Was it Quigley? James E. Quigley?
I don't know. James E. Quigley was the Roman Catholic bishop who said in 1903 in the Chicago Tribune
20 years this country is going to rule the world. Kings and
when the
emperors
Roman
will soon
Catholic
pass away, but the democracy of the United States will take their place. When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church rules the world. Nothing can stand against the Church. I'd like to see the politician who would try to rule against the Church in Chicago. His reign would be short indeed, unquote.
That's not the quote that I meant, but of course that's a very important quote, yeah.
Yeah. No, there's all kinds of them. I've been just trying to find these quotes, and I'm like overwhelmed with all of the. I'm not searching the right criteria or something.
Okay, so I'm going to read. I'm going to read on, but I'm going to pick it up again at the second sentence here on this last paragraph on page 311. Once the war began, in order to dispel the deep-seated suspicion of the Protestants that the Catholic Church in America was no more than a tool of the Holy See, Bishop Carroll encouraged Catholics to fight in the 1776 war for America's independence from Britain, and this proved to be the major turning point in Catholic-Protestant relations. All of a sudden, the Protestants were hugging the Catholics. We are brothers in arms because we are fighting against the same enemy. Anti-Catholic sentiment greatly abated, especially when, according to Dr. John J. Pilch of Georgetown University, Americans noticed the, quote, wholehearted participation of Catholics in the common struggle and war for independence, unquote. And Bishop John Carroll wrote to John Fenno of the Gazette in June 10, 1789, quote, their blood flowed as freely in proportion to their numbers, to cement the fabric of independence as that of their fellow citizens, unquote. The year 1776, the reader will no doubt recall, was the year in which the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt established the Illuminati, whose expressed aim was the overthrow of all then established governments, free of the yoke of Rome. Now, why, you ask? Would a Jesuit or a zealous Catholic fight and die in a war on a side that he did not really support when his true allegiance was with Rome? I already tried to shed a little light on that, and I gave you the hidden reason. We are coming now to the open reason, or the more open reason of the Roman Catholics. Because, it says here, as one Jesuit general put it, quote, we have men for martyrdom, if they be required, unquote. Fighting and dying in the American Revolutionary War was a small price to pay for Rome's advantage. Okay, why is that Rome's advantage when the colonies separate from England? There you have your hidden agenda. Because it was Rome who founded the government of the United States of America, and therefore they needed the War of Independence. They couldn't get England, so they took the colonies. If this proposition seems preposterous, I cite again the instructions given to the Jesuit at his initiation to a position of command. Quote, you have been taught to take sides with the combatants and to act secretly in concert with your brother Jesuit, who might be engaged on the other side, but openly opposed to that which you might be connected, only that the Church might be the gainer in the end. The end justifies the means. As a result of the role played by Catholics in the War for Independence and by those who went to Canada with the Quebec delegation, respect for Catholics grew, particularly for Charles Carroll and Father John Carroll. So much so that in 1792, when Washington was considering resigning the presidency, James McHenry of Maryland suggested, and Alexander Hamilton agreed, that Charles Carroll would run as a Federalist candidate for President of the United States. Had President Washington retired at that time, the first Catholic president would have been Charles Carroll. And for this information, if you want to know a little bit more about it, again, I ask you to turn to the book The Ark and the Dove by J. Moss Ives, and you will learn more of the details of this scam that was actually fomented there. Another fact worthy of note is that soon after Washington's Continental Congress declared its independence from Britain in 1776, a military alliance was formed with Catholic France against Protestant England. A military alliance was formed with Catholic France against Protestant England. So you are connecting yourself to Roman Catholics to fight against Protestants. Does that make any sense to you, Brad?
No.
Only when you see that the Freemasons are in the rule. The Freemasons and the Illuminati were in the rule. They were in the rule in France at that time because they were preparing for the French Revolution. And of course, they were undercover in the United States of America, or the colonies, which would become the United States of America later on. Then it makes sense.
Right.
Next, Catholic Spain joined in. Why would France and Spain get involved in such a distant war? No, the question must be, why would Catholic France and Catholic Spain get involved in a war between two Protestant nations? To ensure the success of the Catholic cause. If the reader still doubts that Rome had a hand in and benefited from the fomenting of the American Revolution, then consider the following report written by Bishop John Carroll, who had 26 years of Jesuit training, from a committee of Catholic clergy reporting to Rome in 1790, 1 year after the forming of the United States of America. Quote, in 1776, American independence was declared and a revolution effected, not only in political affairs, but also in those relating to religion. For while the 13 provinces of North America rejected the yoke of England, before this great event, the Catholic faith had penetrated 2 provinces only, Maryland and Pennsylvania. In all the others, the laws against Catholics were enforced, but by the Declaration of Independence, every difficulty was removed. Every political disqualification was done away. Unquote. Now, I'm not Tom Friess, but he very eloquently stated on numerous times that it is so important that we understand why the Roman Catholic Church all of a sudden promotes freedom of religion. Where through all the 1260 years of the absolute reign of the Antichrist, as written in the Bible, there was no freedom of religion under Roman Catholicism. Why all of a sudden Roman Catholicism is promoting religious liberty? Well, because the Roman Catholic Church all of a sudden saw itself confronted with a situation where she was not the absolute ruler. She was in the absolute minority, remember? 1% of the inhabitants of the United States in 1776 only were Roman Catholics. 99% were Protestants. How can you turn 1% into the majority within 200 years? Well, look back at your history and you'll see that. And only a little bit of the quote-unquote invasion of quote-unquote illegal immigrants is only a part of that. Let me assure you that. The Roman Catholic Church has to be very, very vigilant and quiet and still and moving in the dark when not having the upper hand. They turn that around when they have the upper hand, of course. That's something else, and that is something that you guys over there in the United States of America will experience within a few days. That's why Tom Friess calls his ministry Inquisition Update, warning of the coming Inquisition. When the Roman Catholic politics in the United States of America finally gets the upper hand. they don't need to hide under quote-unquote Protestantism anymore, because Protestantism is dead since Vatican II and the ecumenical movement after that. Protestantism is dead in the United States of America since in 1981 President Ronald Reagan faced the obelisk during his inauguration and giving a sign to the Jesuits all over the world, "We conquered America." And when later on he had a visit with Pope John Paul II and he knelt down and said, "Holy Father, I give you my country." The United States of America has been sold out, and that is only possible because of this liberation theology, first being started to being taught by Roman Catholic Cardinal Bellarmine. And that was all the idea, to set up this quote-unquote freedom of religion so that Rome could act in countries where they didn't have the upper hand, and then to start infiltrating until they had the upper hand. And that's exactly what they did the last 240 years in the colonies, which you call today the United States of America. Get that into your head. Freedom of religion is an absolutely betrayal by the devil. Let me ask you one question. Is there freedom of religion in the kingdom of Christ? Are you free to worship Buddha? Are you free to worship Allah? Are you free to worship a pope when you are in the kingdom of Jesus Christ? I guess not, right? I guess not.
Nope.
And the whole quote-unquote Old Testament, the whole Law and the Prophets book that we call the first book of the Bible, is dealing with that there is no freedom of religion in Israel. And I'm speaking of the true Israel, not of the piece of dirt in Palestine over there. Now, I'm speaking of the real, true Israel. There is no freedom of religion. When you want to have freedom of religion, you go to hell.
Yeah.
You have one master and one master only that you serve. That is your Father in heaven and his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. And when you do not do that, you are doomed. And the Roman Catholic Church just turns that around and says, you are doomed when you are not a subject of the Roman Pontiff, as declared with Boniface VIII in 1302 in his bull Unam Sanctam, that it is absolutely necessary for the salvation of every human creature to be subject to the Roman Pontiff. Bang! Exactly the opposite of what God says. Adhere to man or adhere to God. Your choice. Freedom of religion? My eye. There's no freedom of religion. And do you know what freedom of religion for a Roman Catholic means? For a Roman Catholic, freedom of religion only means that he can, wherever he is, practice his superstitious and idolatrous religion, and that he can pay his first allegiance to the Pope, and that he can eat the Jesus cookie 20 times a day if he wants to. By saying these abominable words, hoc est corpus enim meum, and putting Jesus Christ out of heaven into this little wafer bread and eating it up like a cannibal. Not doing it in remembrance of Jesus Christ as Jesus Christ told us in the Bible. No. When you say, oh, I'm doing that just in remembrance of Jesus Christ, you are anathema of the Roman Catholic Church. Freedom of religion? My eye.
Yep,
Sorry,
it's
Brett.
just another way of saying you are free to worship mystery religion. You are free to participate in satanic activities. You are free to worship Satan. Yeah, it's
I
sick.
had to get that off my chest, Brett.
Sure,
Sorry.
no doubt.
So we continue on page 313, and if that was a little bit too heavy for you, just pause the video a second and think about what I just said there. Thus, in John Carroll's own words, the Revolutionary War was a war relating to religion. Of course, the Catholic Church gave lip service to universal religious toleration, as it served her ends. At the time, Catholicism was the religion not tolerated. But the Church's real agenda is found in a letter of February 27, 1785, from John Carroll to Cardinal Leonardo Antonelli, quote, that the most flourishing portion of the Church, with great comfort to the Holy See, may one day be found here, unquote. In this opinion he was joined by Father Charles Plowden, who gave the sermon at Carroll's consecration on, oh no, not again, August 15th, Assumption Day, 1790. Quote, although this great event may appear to us to have been the work, the sport of human passion, yet the earliest and most precious fruit of it has been the extension of the kingdom of Christ, the propagation of the Catholic religion, which hitherto, fettered by restraining laws, is now enlarged from bondage and is left at liberty to exert the full energy of divine truth. Unquote.
Yeah, as soon as you hear that word father, quote unquote father, the red flag goes up. I mean, this is what I say. If you hear this in relation to our government or our religion, the red flag goes up, right, Yerk?
Yeah.
I mean,
And
the only father we really have is our real holy Father in heaven. We don't have an earthly father, period. Right, Yerk?
Not a spiritual one, only
Yeah,
a biological
that's
one.
right. That's right. So for me, whenever I hear that father, it's like, red flag, watch out.
That's right, but we should really more concentrate on this little quote that stands here, the very last words of this quote. It says that hitherto fettered by restraining laws, the Roman Catholic religion in the colonies in the United States of America is now enlarged from bondage and is left at liberty to exert the full energy of divine truth. And of course, we all know what they understand of divine truth.
Oh, boy.
Because with God, they refer to their little God over there in Rome.
Oh, yuck. Yeah.
And it's like I said, it is now enlarged from bondage and is left at liberty to exert the full energy of divine truth. So that means they can now everywhere join their idolatrous and superstitious religion that was forbidden before. That is what freedom of religion gave to the Roman Catholics. The Protestants had freedom of religion. They had the freedom to worship God in the way that they wanted to worship Him, in the way that He demands to be worshipped in the Bible. They didn't need any religious liberty. It was Roman Catholics that needed religious liberty.
I mean, we almost could just call it human liberty because, it's not of a, it's really not biblically divine origin. In worldly terms, they claim it to be of divine origin. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just these subtleties, I guess.
No, it's just that when you have to understand that when Catholics speak of divine truth in this example, you have to understand with divine, they mean their little God they have over there in Rome.
That's right.
They don't mean the God of the Bible. That's the big difference.
The God of the Gnostic faith, yeah. Pretty much.
So the author continues, let there be no mistake. Let there be no mistake. The American War of Independence was a double victory for Catholicism. Firstly, over Britain, having used the light cavalry of the Pope, the Jesuits, and the Freemasons to encourage the Crown to pass those intolerable acts, and secondly, over the psyche of the American people. Thus did the Papists and the Jesuits play their role in the American War of Independence. He's just saying, in other words, what I said in my comment at the beginning of this broadcast. That the Jesuits and their French Illuminists were the instigators behind the American War of Independence was hinted at by President George Washington himself. In response to a letter from Jesuit Bishop John Carroll congratulating the president on his election, Washington wrote back on March 12, 1790, saying, quote, to the Roman Catholics of the United States, your fellow citizens, non-Catholics, will not forget the patriotic part which you took in the accomplishment of their revolution and the establishment of their government, or the assistance received from a nation in which the Roman Catholic faith is professed, i.e., from the French, the Jacobins, or the Illuminati. Unquote. We observe also, by the by, the following revelations, which are clipped in small print from the Denver Register. On May 11th, 1952, that paper ran the following article suggesting that Washington converted to Catholicism before he died. That must be an article that is very much venerated by Eric John Phelps, I guess. Quote, a picture of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and don't make me puke when I read about these.
Yeah, no doubt.
This wonderful person that gave birth to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ here on earth is a blessed person, absolutely. She was a saint while living, because the saints of the Bible are the living. She would turn in her grave again and again and again if she knew what the people made out of her afterwards.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, this is what's going on. They're just rehashing the mystery religion and putting it on her name. You know, it's sick.
They are just taking their Queen of Heaven and name her Virgin Mary, the perpetual virgin, where even a 6-year-old can read in the Bible that Mary gave birth to other children after Jesus.
Absolutely right.
Yeah? It is stated on numerous places in the Bible that I think, and once even in the Gospel of Matthew, when Jesus was holding a speech somewhere, that someone came up to him and said, "Here, your mother and your brothers and your family is here." And he said, "Who are my family? My family are my brother and my sister are my mother and my brother and my sister are those who listen to the word of God and do the word of God."
Yes, that's right.
He never ever referred in the Bible, not once, to Mary as his mother. He said that woman. Yeah. So I just get sick every time when I have to read of the quote-unquote Blessed Virgin Mary. And understand me right, that's why I'm saying this, not in disregard to who Mary actually was, because she was a wonderful woman. She gave birth to our Savior, but she also knew that she needed a Savior.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's the duality of living this life, Yerk. You have the flesh and you have the spirit.
Yeah.
Which are you going to venerate? You going to venerate the flesh? Well, then have a happy mystery religion then. See you later. Goodbye.
Okay, so let's see what they wrote on May 11th, 1952 in the Denver Register about suggesting that Washington was converted to Catholicism before he died, which I tell you right now is a flat-out lie. A picture of the Blessed Virgin Mary and one of St. John were among the effects found in an inventory of the articles at Mount Vernon at the death of George Washington. The Reverend W.C. Repetti from the Society of Jesus, archivist at Georgetown University, reports he has discovered this information in an appendix to a biography of Washington. The book is A Life of George Washington by Edward Everett, published by Sheldon and Company in New York in 1860. The fact that he had a picture of the Blessed Virgin is rather unexpected and, to the best of my knowledge, has not been brought out, says Father Repetti. The long report among slaves of Mount Vernon as to Washington's deathbed conversion would be odd unless based on truth. It is part of the tradition that weeping and wailing occurred in the quarters that Massa Washington had been snared by the Scarlet Woman of Rome. Father Neal was rowed across the Piscatawny by Negro oarsmen, and men often talked freely when slaves were nearby, confidently ignoring their presence. You know, Eric John Phelps will be a very big enemy of this little article.
Oh,
saying that,
he even
suggesting that Washington
mentioned.
converted to Catholicism. But the point is, Washington didn't even need openly to convert to Catholicism, because we know that he was stirred, that he was led by the Illuminati. He was a Freemason, so he was under Jesuit control anyway.
Yeah.
So he was a Roman Catholic.
It's interesting.
Sorry,
because that recording you and I did 2.5 years ago, we talked about this very topic of how researchers either hinge one way or the other, either Eric John Phelps type of, his reasoning is that this book is blasphemy because of this quote right here, probably.
Yeah.
That's his reasoning.
Washington was a Baptist.
Yeah. And then you have the other side where you say, no, this is valid. What's up with you, Eric? Man, come on.
Well, it is like always, Brett. By their fruits you will know them.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And George Washington was an Illuminati puppet from the beginning.
That's right.
And when you understand his life and his doings and everything he did in his life, you will see that the fruits that he bore were of that kind.
Yes,
I mean,
that's true.
If he was really a Protestant, why isn't there one word of the Bible preserved in the Constitution or in the Bill of Rights?
Yeah, that's right. I agree. It's not.
Right?
No, it's
I mean,
not.
at least he was the very first president of that newborn nation.
Yeah.
If you want to make me a president of a newborn nation and tell me that nation is Protestant, then I'm going to ask you, okay, and where's the Bible and the Constitution?
Yeah.
Where's God and the Constitution? Nowhere to be found.
Where are the 10 Commandments in the Constitution?
Yeah, that's what I mean with the Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
Any relation
It's
to the Bible
just that simple, Jörg, right?
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
And there's nothing.
Precept upon precept, line upon line. Do we see it? No. Okay, let's move on.
Exactly. So there you know the real knowings of George Washington. So whether he converted to Catholicism before he died or he didn't, it doesn't matter. He was a Catholic all his life.
Exactly.
If not spiritually, he was one secularly.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the point.
Yes,
and that's the point that we also have to understand for the people today in the United States of America, when a lot of them say, oh, I'm a Protestant, and they don't even know what they protest, but I'm not going into that.
No.
But they are made Roman Catholic through the adherence of the law of the country. And that law is in accordance with Roman Catholic canon law.
Yeah, and then double duty in the Protestant church. They give their allegiance to Rome in the stupid Apostles' Creed. I mean, this is what made me just absolutely revolt after I came back to the church again after taking a long break, is trying to recite this Apostles' Creed again. It's blasphemy to me. It just makes my blood boil, so to speak.
Yeah. Have you ever read the 39 articles of the Westminster Confession?
Oh, that's pretty bad too, isn't it?
Right in the beginning there, you see already that there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
It is a compromise of Protestantism with Roman Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, because compromise always leads to lie, always leads to deception.
Oh, it's like
always leads away from the truth.
It's like calling the Lord's Supper the Eucharist. I mean, come on. Hello? Yeah.
Okay, so reading from another Denver Register from February 24th, 1957, so 5 years later, we read, quote, It was a long tradition among both the Maryland Providence Jesuit fathers and the Negro slaves of the Washington plantation that the first president died a Catholic. These and other facts about George Washington are reported in the Paulist Information magazine by Doran Hurley. The story is that Father Leonard Neal, Society of Jesus, was called to Mount Vernon from St. Mary's Mission across the Piscatawny rivers 4 hours before Washington's death. Washington's body servant, Juba, is authority for the fact that the general made the sign of the cross at meals. He may have learned this from Catholic lieutenants, Stephen Moylan or John Fitzgerald, at Valley Forge. Washington forbade the burning in effigy of the pontiff on Pope's Day. Several times as president, he is reported to have slipped into a Catholic church to hear Sunday Mass, unquote. So I don't need these little quote-unquote proofs that George Washington was a closet Catholic.
No.
I know that all the way along. And not only George Washington, but every one of the so-called quote-unquote founding fathers. And I made a few broadcasts years ago, I think in 2014, at the time with Walt Stickle about this, the Jesuits' connection to 1776.
Oh, yeah.
And those are very, very interesting. And when you have a chance to find that on the internet and still can listen to it, because I don't know if the audios are on that long, are probably not there anymore.
Nope, I think they're all deleted. I tried to look them up last night. They're all gone. Those recordings you did with Walt.
Yeah. And that was quite an interesting work.
Mm-hmm. But, it is, actually.
I still
have some of it too, yeah.
I still have some written documents of that I saved, of course, on my computer. I still have that. So,
you know, it's interesting, Yerk, with computers. You know, I've been doing these recordings for all these years, and the people, you know, on the recording forums, just to break away from the subject, just very briefly, will say, you know, if you don't have your data backed up in two places, it doesn't exist. And the meaning behind that is that if something goes wrong with your drive, how do you get that data back?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just like, what?
Well, I have a hard drive of 2 terabytes where I have all my work saved up to now.
Sure.
1 terabyte is almost taken, and now Michael sent me another one of 1 terabyte, and I will put all my work on that too, and save it on that second one also, so that.
Well, just a little tip for everyone listening, and you as well, Yerk, is. You don't have to have that drive running all the time, because the more hours you put on it.
I always connect that only to the computer when I need it. For the rest, it's not connected.
There you go.
Because otherwise, they can probably infiltrate it and probably destroy it even from the outside. You know.
Well, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in the matrix, I guess, but.
You should really connect these extra drives via USB port only to your computer when you need it.
Only when you need it.
And even at that moment, the most secure place is to first disconnect your computer from the modem, from the internet, and then do that internal work of exchanging data between the two. Then even at that moment when you are connected to it, you don't have an internet connection.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, we still have a few little paragraphs to go until the end of the chapter.
Let's do it.
Let's go through it, because this Revolutionary War really takes it out of me, man.
Oh, man, it's really, you're right. I mean, go ahead.
So it seems that President Washington lived like a Catholic during his life and was converted to Catholicism before his death. Bishop John Carroll said that Washington died, as did Emperor Valentinian, referring to the Roman emperor who, like Constantine, was received into the Catholic Church just before his death. Washington was also a member of the Great Council of the Fraternitas Rosae Crucis. Rosicrucians, or what is that? Though he was known, so he was known only as the Great Council at the time, as he chose to remain an inconnu, or an unknown, of the fraternity. Inconnu is the French word for unknown. Fraternita Rosae Crucis, well, that's the fraternity of the Rose Cross, right? So that's Rosicrucian. After the War of Independence from Britain, the Pope sent thousands more Jesuits to work and insinuate themselves in the affairs of the new republic. Today, and P.D. Stewart is speaking about the time of 2006, the Jesuits are openly working with the great men of the United States, and the leading political figures are bending upon their knees, fawning before the Roman pontiff. Thus we see that the American Revolution was another great Jesuit enterprise, a most colossal conspiracy against the United States, and one of their finest fields of victory yet, almost on the scale of that achieved by Loyola in the 16th century Europe. James Atkin Wiley well said, quote, "If despotisms will not serve them, they will demoralize society and render government impossible through revolution, and from chaos to remodel the world anew." Unquote. Order out of chaos, as it is stated on the back of your dollar bill.
Mm-hmm.
Do not doubt this, for the Jesuits openly say that fascism is the regime that corresponds most closely to the concepts of the Church of Rome. And we can read that in the Jesuit publication Civiltà Cattolica. The Jesuits, you must understand, hate all free, all non-Catholic states, and so they seek to cure the evils of democracy by the evils of fascism, like curing syphilis by giving the patient malaria.
I'm sorry.
It's a very
I had to
nice
laugh.
No, that's okay. That's a very nice note the author ends this chapter here. And the quote from Civiltà Cattolica really comes right into place. That is also mentioned in The Secret History of the Jesuits and in many other places, yeah? Where it states that, where is it here? Fascism is the regime that corresponds most closely to the concepts of the Church of Rome. That's from Civiltà Cattolica.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Brett, that brings us to the end of chapter 31.
Right.
We have to start next time. Chapter 32, Enemies of the State Unmasked. Secret Plots Against America. Well, that's not a chapter, that's a whole book in itself, right?
Oh, boy. No doubt. Yeah, good title there. I mean, today we're witnessing lots of this, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, no doubt. It doesn't end, man. It just keeps going.
At least for the ones, Brett, who have eyes to see and ears to hear.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. At least for those.
So I hope that you, dear listener, understand that I am not an anti-American bigot, but I did the explanation that I did next to the reading here to open your eyes to the betrayal that not only you, but also the generation before you, your father and your mother, your grandfather and your grandmother, and even the generation before has been lied to all the time about the real reasons of founding the United States of America. You were all told a lie. And the only way that you can expose this lie is when you put the Bible next to the actions that we were reading of here. When you put the Bible next to it, when the Bible it says, "Thou shalt not kill," where Jesus said in the New Testament, "Do not harm any man." Whenever you are resolving any problem that you have with violence, you are not on a biblical path. And that's what they did here, of course. And they used the gullibility of the people to tell the masses whatever they wanted to tell them, oh, look, the United States of America is a Protestant nation and it was founded on freedom principles, but they never told you that the freedom principles the United States of America was founded on were freedom principles that were given by the Pope, and not by the Lord of Heaven. That's the big difference, you know?
Huge difference.
That's a huge difference.
And it's even worse when you find out that they've been teaching this in the pulpits.
Yeah, they teach that in the pulpits, they teach it in kindergarten, they teach it in schools, they teach it in universities, they teach it over the television, over newspapers, over radio, over movies, Brett.
Yes.
They teach that all over in any kind
everywhere.
of
they do.
Any kind of media they can lay their hands on, they teach that lie. And therefore it is so difficult to awake out of it. And only when you understand what real freedom is.
Yeah, I think that's what we're getting
sorry,
to.
And that is, I have to end this thought.
Please,
and that is the freedom with which Jesus Christ will set you free. That is the only freedom that you can really experience. Then you understand that all these other quote-unquote freedoms that you can experience here in this world are man-made and man-led and man-given. And what man gives, man can take away. That's why the God of the Bible never gave us any rights. But the man in this world, the Pope especially, gives us quote-unquote human rights. It gives us all the quote-unquote rights we have, and then he can take them away. The God of the Bible did not give us any right. He gave us a law, he gave us ordinances, and he gave us rules and ordinations how to obey them. That's what the Lord of heaven did and does. And it is your choice whether you listen to the Lord of heaven or to the quote-unquote Lord of the world. As Peter Stewart puts it in his new book that we are still awaiting, Pope Francis, Lord of the world. And with that, dear listener and dear viewer, I want to say goodbye for the reading today. I look forward to see you next time in the next reading of Codeword Barbelon, and I leave the closing remarks this time for Brett. For me, I wish you a nice day, and may God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jörg, for the wonderful reading of this chapter 31, closing it up on the Revolutionary War, how America became a Jesuit enclave. And really looking forward to the next readings here. Hope everyone's doing well. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
That for the first time in human history, for the first time in all of human history, almost all of mankind is politically awake. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. And I believe that we've come horribly off track in the years since the fall of the Soviet Union. And we're starting now in the 21st century, which I believe strongly is a crisis both of our church, a crisis of our faith, a crisis of the West, and a crisis of capitalism.
His son Jesus is here in our midst. His bride, the church, is honored to host an event affirming the dignity of the human person and the sacredness of all human life.
I think Russia is no longer a communist state, first of all. That's very important to realize. It hasn't yet defined itself, however, effectively as a democracy. It is still uncertain.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict, of which if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, to really be able to not just stand with our beliefs, but to fight for our beliefs against this new barbarity that's starting, that we will literally eradicate everything that we've been bequeathed over the last 2,025 years.
You didn't mention the president by name, but it was hard not to conclude that that's who you were referring to. Is that fair?
I was certainly referring to the threats that we are now facing with this stated goals of this administration, which would upset the last 70 years of a new world order which was established after World War II. 70 years based on human rights, respect for the law, free trade, all of the things and aspects of this world order that took place after one of the most horrific, terrible wars in history. And I'm for maintaining it.
We are grateful to be citizens of one nation under God, who acclaim this evening that in God we trust. Bless our two candidates, our benefactors, and those whom the L. Smith Foundation has been honored to serve for 7 decades. Guide us safely home, both this evening and for all eternity, through Christ our Lord. Amen.